So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to cover 2.7 today, section 2.7, and then on Thursday we are going to do the review for the test, because this Sunday the assignments that are going to be due in Math Lab are 2.7, which we're going to do today, the Chapter 2 review, and the Chapter 2 test. Okay, now before I get into 2.7, let's just talk about how the Chapter 2 review and the Chapter 2 test work. The review, which will be the first assignment before the test, and you'll see it, it's in the same spot as your homework is. It'll just be the assignment right after 2.7. Okay, now the review is set up for you to work as many times as you want. So you don't want to just work it one time, especially if you work it one time and you do not do well on it, that means you're not ready for the test. So you want to work it multiple times until you're really familiar with the material. That'll make sure, that'll also just give you the confidence when you're taking the test. If you've taken that review several times and finally you're doing really well on it, you're scoring in 80s or 90s, that means the test is going to be exactly like the review. I mean, pretty much going to be the same problems, different numbers. So if you've worked that review multiple times, you're going to be familiar with the information that is exactly on the test, which will give you that confidence when you go in to take the test. Okay, so work that review multiple times, and also the review, doesn't matter how many times you take it, the gradebook will only record your very highest attempt. So even if you take it the first time and you get an 85, and then you take it again and for some reason, I don't know, just you got interrupted or whatever and you made a 70, the gradebook's not going to take away that 85 and plug in a 70. It's just going to keep the 85 there. So you can only raise your grade by taking it multiple times. You cannot hurt it. Okay? All right. This section 2.7 is on what's called inequalities, where a lot of times we're solving equations and we're trying to find out what x equals, right? That's what we've been doing this whole semester, is solving equations for x. We're going to be doing a lot of the same thing, except we're going to be solving inequalities, which means our answer is going to end up, instead of x equals, it's going to end up saying x is greater than or x is less than a certain number. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the terminology first. Okay, so this right here, that says x is greater than. So x is going to be greater than whatever is on this side of that symbol. Good morning. I just got your chat. So x is greater than. This one says x is less than. What is ever on the other side of that inequality symbol. If it has this little straight line underneath that greater than symbol, that means greater than or equal to. That's right. And then the last one. So this would mean x is less than or equal to. So those are what those four different symbols are telling you. X is greater than whatever on the other side. X is less than whatever's on the right side. X is greater than or equal to. Or X is less than or equal to. So for instance, if you have something that looks like this, this statement reads, X is greater than 7. That means X is all the numbers bigger than 7. This statement would say, X is less than or equal to -5, which means X is all the numbers less than -5 and -5, right? That's what the equal to sign, part of it means. So what we're going to do first on the first two problems is it's going to give us the picture of a number line. And it's going to have an arrow with either a bracket or a parenthesis around a certain number. So let's think about this. This, if you have, and this is going to come into play on every single one of these problems, you're going to use parentheses around anything that's just like greater than or less than. So those use parentheses. And this will all make sense once we get into these. If your problem has this equal to bar, that is telling you to use brackets around that instead of parentheses. So this one would be a bracket, and this one would be a bracket. Again, these are going to, once we get into seeing these, you'll see where those come in. All right, let's look at number 1. All right, number 1 gives us a picture of a number line. And it's got a bunch of different numbers on the number line. I'm just going to write the important ones. So let's just say 0 is there. Your positives are on this side of the number line, correct? Your numbers go up to the right. So this would be your 1, 2, 3, and 4. Your negatives are on this side of the number line. So let's see. So this one goes all the way to, it's going to have the information we need on the -11. So it's got a parenthesis on -11 with the arrow pointing to the right. What it wants us to do is say, what is this saying? What is being shown here? So it says the inequality corresponding to the graph is what? And it says type of inequality using x as the variable. So let's see. This says, what numbers are to this side of that -11? Numbers greater than it or numbers less than it? If you're all the numbers this way are what than -11? They're greater than it, right? All these numbers are bigger than -11. That's what the arrow going that way means. So that's what we want to write out. X is greater than -11. Now, what we need to do, go ahead and put your X. Now, here's where the parenthesis or bracket comes in. The parenthesis or bracket tells me whether or not I need to use the equal to bar in my answer. What makes you use the equal to bar? A bracket or a parenthesis? Who has the equal to bars? The brackets do. Does this one have a bracket or a parenthesis? It's a parenthesis, so I do not want to include the equal to bars. So this is just saying X is greater than negative 11 is what you would write. Now, when you're working these problems, down at the bottom, it always gives you what you need to answer the question. So it'll have the less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to buttons down there in that toolbox for you to click on. So you would type in X just from your keyboard, go down and hit the greater 2 button and negative 11. All right, number 2. This time the number line has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This time it's at positive 11. And it has a bracket on it this time. The bracket is pointing this way with the arrow going to the left. So let's see, X and 11. I need to put my symbol. What is that arrow? What are all the numbers that are this side of 11? What are they, bigger or less than 11? They're less than 11, right? You can look at any, you can do any number over here and check it. Is 0 less than 11? Yeah. So all the numbers on this side, and you can also think if the arrow is going to the left, left means less than. They kind of, I guess they don't rhyme, but they kind of sound the same. Left, less. So also, some people have trouble saying, okay, I know it's less than. I have trouble with which symbol that is. Is it this or is it that? Make your symbol point the same way as this arrow. So point your symbol the same way as that arrow is pointing. That says X is less than 11. Now, number 3, before we get into the problems like number 3, we need to talk about what interval notation is. So this is one way to write an inequality. Just saying X is less than a number, or X is greater than a number, or less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Another way is to use what's called interval notation. So let's look at what that means. Notation is going to use, it's going to look like this. It's going to have the smallest part on the left side, comma, the biggest part. Now, sometimes you're going to use parentheses, and sometimes you're going to use brackets for the same exact reasons we use parentheses and brackets in the other way. If there's an equal to symbol, you'll put a bracket around that part. Now, we're also going to see some of these symbols. These symbols are called infinities. This means infinity, this means negative infinity. It's like a sideways 8. And when you're doing it in there, again, you'll have that in little sideways 8 infinity symbol down there where you need to click on it. So when you're talking about interval notation and you're using infinities and negative infinities, and we'll see where those come into play, infinity and negative infinity, you never even have to think about it. If that is what you're putting on either of these sides, it always has a parenthesis. Because the bracket means you're including that number. That's what the equal to bar means. If I say x is greater than or equal to 4, that means it also equals 4. That's why you use the bracket. That means you want to include the 4. Well, you can't equal an infinity, right? It's not a specific number. It just means on and on and on and on forever. It's not an endpoint. So these don't ever use brackets. They always use parentheses around them when you're talking about infinities or negative infinities. Now, when I do the ones on using interval notation, what I like to do first is write what they're saying on a number line. Once you see the picture of it on a number line, you really just pull the interval notation off that number line. Let me show you what I'm talking about on number 3. Number 3 says, write the inequality x is less than or equal to 7 in interval notation. So it tells us this, x is less than or equal to 7. Now, the second part of this problem is actually going to be a multiple choice problem that has you pick out the picture of the graph that represents this. So you're not even doing any extra work. You're going to have to know that in a minute anyway. But it wants you to write it in interval notation first. But like I said, I'm going to write how this is represented on a number line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 7 is the important number because that's what I'm using in the problem. First of all, is 7 going to have a bracket around it or a parenthesis? It's going to have a bracket. That's what the equal to bar means. It's going to have a bracket. So now all I have to decide is which way does my arrow go? Again, point it the same way as this is pointing. So I'm going to point it to the left. So I'm going to have a bracket. If you're pointing your arrow to the left, like this says to do, your bracket has to, you can't draw your bracket to the right and then the arrow to the left. That's not ever going to happen. So whatever way your arrow is pointing, that's the way your bracket needs to open. So I'm going to have a bracket around the 7 with the arrow going to the left. So now I'm going to write this in interval notation. So I'm going to have an opening symbol over here and a closing symbol over here, either a bracket or a parenthesis. So this is the end, right? You can't turn it around and put it on the other side. So I know that this right here is going to look just like that. So now I have to figure out what comes on this side of my interval notation. Where is this arrow going to? Here, if it goes forever this way, there's your infinity. What does forever this way go to? It goes negative forever, or to negative infinity, right? So the numbers go all the way that way to infinity, all the way this way to negative infinity. So what do you think needs to come here? If this arrow, it's an arrow, which means it's going on forever. Where is it going to? It's going to negative infinity that way. So that's going to be what comes here. And what always goes around any kind of infinity symbol? I know. This takes us a minute. So what is this? What is these three things say the exact same thing? This says X is all the numbers less than or equal to 7. That's what it gave me. And then it wanted me to see it in these two ways also. So X is all the numbers less than 7, which would mean 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, all the way to what? I keep going. All the way to all the way through. Negative infinity. If you're on the left side of 7 on this number line, you're going to be less than 7. Doesn't matter where you are. If you're on the left of 7 on the number line, you are less than 7. Now, so that's how it says it. That's how it tells us here. This is the graph of it, which is the multiple choice part of the problem. And then this is how you would write it in the interval notation. You would write your graph, your number line, then really you're just pulling this off that number line. And then again, you are looking, the main things, it's going to give you 4 different number lines to choose from in multiple choice. 2 of them, the way you're going to be able to narrow it down is 2 of them are going to have parentheses. They're out, right? You know your answer is going to have a bracket. So once you knock out the 2 ones with the parentheses, they're going to have 2 pictures with a bracket around the 7. One with the arrow going to the left and one with the arrow going to the right. So then you're just choosing which way does my arrow need to be going. That'll get it all the way down to the correct one. So again, knock out the parentheses because I know it has a bracket. And then I just need to see which way my arrow goes. Your arrow just goes the same way this arrow is going. Okay, let's look at number 4. Same exact kind of problem. This says X is greater than 10. So, I'm going to draw my number line. The only numbers I really like to put on there is the 0, because I know then my negatives are to the left of that and my positives are to the right, and then whatever number I need to represent. So I'll put the 0, and then 10 is represented, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I kept going forever to the right, I'm going to get to nowhere. I'm going to go infinity. Forever to the left is negative infinity. So let's see. Let's put this on the number line. First of all, am I going to have a parenthesis or a bracket? A parenthesis, because there's no equal to bar. Right. So there's going to be a parenthesis on the 10. Which way is my arrow going to point? Which way does this one point? Right. It points to the right. So that's the way my arrow is going to point. So parentheses on the 10 with the arrow pointing to the right. So let's see. The last one, the bracket was going that way, right? On number 3, the bracket was going that way, which means it was the closing part of the interval notation. This time, the parenthesis is going this way, which means it's what? It's the beginning, right? I'm going to have one symbol like this and one symbol like this. An opening and a closing. This one is the one that is the opening. So I'm going to have an opening parenthesis with a 10. Right? I'm just pulling this straight off the number line. This was just showing you from the last one. Yeah. Where is this arrow going? All the way to what? I kept on going. I'm going to go to that infinity symbol. So, 10 to infinity. What do infinity symbols always have around them? Parentheses. So there's your interval notation. Once you put in your interval notation answer, then it's going to ask you to pick a multiple choice graph. So this time, which two would you be knocking out first? The ones that have the brackets. Get rid of those first, because you know it's a parenthesis, not a bracket. So then you're down to two choices. What's your defining? How do you pick your choice? By your arrow. Pick the one. They're all going to have a symbol on the 10. All four of them. Two of them will be brackets. Get rid of those. Once you get rid of those, then you're saying I need to pick. So one will have the 10 with the parenthesis, but the arrow going to the left. The other one will have a 10 with the arrow going to the right. So you would choose the one with the arrow going to the right. Okay? Uh-huh. It takes a minute. Here, I'll put 2 up here. Do those 2. Put them on a number line. I'm going to pause my recording, and then I'll start it. So it's going to have a bracket, right? Since it has the equal to bar. So it's going to have a bracket on -1. Point your arrow to the right, just like the symbol. So a bracket on -1 with my arrow pointed to the right. Now, pull that directly off your number line to make your interval notation, right? Because what is this way? What's on the right? Positive infinity or negative?
Positive infinity.
So there's infinity.
So it's going to be infinity with the parentheses.
What's going to be first, though?
The bracket.
The bracket.
And then -1.
-1. What's last?
Then positive infinity parentheses.
That's right. Once you practice it a few times, once you get the hang of it, again, I would always do your number line first. It's hard to go from here straight to here without seeing the picture of it in the number line. So on this one, let's see, I have the 2, bracket or parenthesis. Parenthesis because there is no equal to bar. So it's going to have a parenthesis. Which way is my arrow going? To the left, just like the symbol says. A parenthesis, arrow, left. Okay, so let's see. What's down here in positive or negative infinity? Negative infinity, positive infinity over there.
So
Is this the beginning or end? That's the end of it, isn't it? That's the closing symbol. It's closing it out. So I'm going to have a closing symbol with a 2, which means what's on this side? Negative infinity. Parentheses.
So I got this backwards.
Right, and that's the one that most people do get backwards.
And you said left arrow, right?
Left arrow. All right, number 5. just like number 5 in your homework. This has -9 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to -1. So it wants us to put it on the graph, on the number line, and then write it in interval notation. So what this is, look, what is x? It is in between those two numbers. That's what that's saying. If the x is in the middle of two numbers, that means I want to show x in between those two numbers. So what are the two numbers that I need on my number line? Right. -9 and -1. Remember, zero's not there. Zero's right there, right? Doesn't really matter where 0 is, but it is on the other side of -1, right? So I want to show all the numbers in between -9 and -1, which means I'm not going to have an infinity in this problem. It's stopping at -9 on this side and -1 on that side. The x is all the numbers in between those two. So same rules apply. The equal to bar says I'm going to put a bracket. A parenthesis means no equal to bar. So what's going to be around the -9? A bracket. What's going to be around the -1? A bracket. All the numbers in between are represented between those brackets. There's your interval notation right there. You pull it, you literally just take that straight off the number line. Yeah.
Oh, so the answer gonna be D. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because even when I was writing it down, I was like, I know that people are going to look at this. Now, read this. That does say x is less than -1. But this is kind of written backwards. You see how the x is on the wrong side? If you read it from the x, see how this mouth is open to the x? Your mouth is always open to the greater side. It's like it wants to eat the biggest number. So this actually says, since it is written backwards, it actually says x is greater than -9. If I wrote just this part of it by itself, so let's put, I'm gonna flip-flop where the x and -9 are. Okay? Now, I can't, if I put the x over here and the -9 over here, that means the mouth still has to be open to the x. So if I make the mouth open to the x, it would look like that. This and this part of it say the same thing. It's kind of flip-flopped of your thinking because the x is on the wrong side of the inequality symbol. I'm glad you said that, because somebody's going to run into that and think that for sure. So this really says, if I read it from the x instead of from the -9, it would say x is greater than or equal to -9. So on these, with the two numbers with the x stuck in between them, you're always going to just have the bracket and parentheses enclosing those numbers. Okay? So you would choose the graph that looks like this, with the bracket around the -9 and a bracket around the -1 with the shading in between them. When you're writing in an interval notation, you literally just take this part of the graph off. Bracket, -9, -1, bracket. That's the interval notation. Once you see it on the number line, you literally just yank it off the number line. All right, number 6 is exactly the same. Try this one. -2 is less than x, which is less than 6. So x is between -2 and 6 on the number line. So put that on your number line. All the numbers in between -2 and 6. Make sure somebody's going to have a parenthesis, somebody's going to have a bracket on this one. You're still hanging in there. We're almost to test 1, and you are still doing great. We only got 4 tests. Test 1 is almost out of the way.
I'm just like 5 ahead.
Oh, well then.
That's where I ended the other day. And
Well, then you're fine. So here's my number line. Let's see, I'm going to have a -2 and I'm going to have a 6. X is the numbers in between those. What does the -2 have on it? It's got a parenthesis. What does the 6 have on it? It's going to have a bracket since it's got the equal to bar. The numbers in between are what are represented. Pull it straight off your number line. So you're going to have parentheses, -2, comma, 6, bracket. All right, number 7. So starting with number 7 is just going to add some solving to it before we can go to our number line and our interval notation. But we use the same rules to solve inequalities that we did as solving equations. Like number 7 says x -5 is greater than or equal to -9.
So what you gonna?
Patty, you got to get x by itself first.
Right.
You're just going to add that 5 to both sides. Just like you would with an x equals problem. So it's the same principle. I'm going to get rid of the -5 with a +5. Right? So those cancel. So you just have the x is greater than or equal to -9 plus 5. You don't like that? Punch it in, right? -4. So now you're to just like we've been doing. So put it on a number line. All you care about is -4. Right? There's only one number represented. X isn't in between 2 numbers this time. So there's not 2 numbers. There's just 1 number. Which means if there's just 1 number represented, I'm going to be dealing with some infinities. That's what's going to happen if you just have 1 number. So I need to remember positive is this way, negative is this way.
So it's gonna be a bracket.
Bracket on -4, what way is your arrow going? To this way, right?
The right.
Point it just the same as
Oh,
this.
the arrow. Okay, got you.
So bracket, arrow to the right. So that's how you would answer your multiple choice part of it, right? You would look, find the 2. There's going to be 2 that have brackets on 4. So you're choosing the one that has the arrow to the right. Bracket on 4, arrow to the right. Now, write this in interval notation. So this is opening, right? So I'm going to have a bracket, opening bracket, -4. Where am I going to? Positive infinity. What does infinity always have? A parenthesis. Yep.
I said the arrow.
going buzz.
look at that one. Same kind of problem. X plus 2 is less than 7. So I need to get x by itself first, so I'm going to do what? Subtract 2. Minus 2, minus 2. So x is less than 5. So 5 is the only number represented on your number line. That's all you care about is the 5. If there's only one number represented, I'm going to have either a negative infinity or a positive infinity in my answer. So just remind yourself where those are.
It's gonna be a negative infinity.
Right. Why? Because this is going to have a parenthesis or bracket. Parenthesis on 5 with your arrow pointing the same way this arrow is. So it's going to be to the left. So parenthesis on 5, arrow to the left. So if my parenthesis is going this way, that's the ending spot, right? I'm going stopping at 5 with that parenthesis. Where's this arrow going to? Negative infinity. So negative infinity, parentheses on that side. All right, number 8. So those two problems would match up with number 7. This will look like number 8 when you're working your homework. 9x plus 4 is less than 8x minus 5. So we're getting into all those other steps that we learned when we were solving equations. So what do I see? I see that I have x's on both sides. Cancel one of them out. I'm going to cancel out this one. When I'm working with inequalities, I always like to cancel out the one on the right. And the reason is so we don't run into that situation where my x is on the wrong side of the infinity symbol. That's hard to read. It makes your arrows messed up. Like that's that same exact thing would happen. If you ended up with your x's over here, it would be hard to read it backwards. So always cancel the one on the right side. So minus 8x from both sides to get rid of the x on the right. And it actually works out great because what's left over here if you subtract the 8x from the 9x? 1x, just x, right? Bring down the plus 4 is less than, what's left on the right side? Negative 5. X still isn't by itself yet. What do I need to do to get the x by itself? Right, subtract 4. So now I got x by itself less than negative 9. So there's what I want to represent on the number line and then interval notation. So let's put it on the number line. Negative 9. What is having one number on your number line means going to be included in your answer? So some kind of infinity. So am I using parenthesis or bracket? Parenthesis on negative 9. Where is my arrow pointing? To the left. So parenthesis, negative 9, arrow to the left. Right. Where's the arrow pointing to? To negative infinity.
So it's going to be parentheses.
Right.
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity,
Comma.
comma.
Negative 9.
Good. Negative 9. Number 9. 3x is greater than or equal to negative 24. So this one, still using my solving equation skills,
So you gonna divide that one?
because it's hooked on, right? That's what tells you to divide. If it's hooked on, you get rid of it by dividing it. So I'm going to divide by 3 this time on both sides. So x, bring down your symbol, greater than or equal to negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8.
So it's gonna be a bracket on there, one end is gonna be a positive infinity, right?
So you're getting it.
I'm trying to.
So, bracket or parenthesis? Bracket. Which way is your arrow pointing? The same way that's pointing. So it's a bracket on negative 8 with my arrow to the right. What's on this side of the number line? Positive infinity. So there is your interval notation. An opening bracket with the negative 8. Ooh. Now it's hard for me to draw an 8 because I've been drawing infinities. So negative 8, and where am I going to?
Positive infinity.
Positive infinity. Infinities always have parentheses.
So in this case, it did switch sides.
It did. Right. If you're this right here, if your arrow is going to the right, your infinity is going to be last. If your arrow is going to the left, your infinity is going to be first, and it's going to be negative. Number 11.
Oh, that's easy.
Number 11?
Oh.
Oh, wait, did I skip one?
Yeah, she skipped 10.
Oh, and it's got a very important thing on number 10. Something new that we haven't seen because we haven't been solving inequalities. Have we? Negative 3x is less than 12.
So you gonna plug that?
What are you dividing? What's hooked on?
3.
Negative 3. So what are you dividing by? You do not change the sign, right?
3.
If it's hooked on, you divide exactly by it. So I'm dividing by negative 3. Here's what is new. Anytime you are solving an inequality, which means a less than or greater than problem, and you divide both sides by a negative, this sign turns around.
Well, say that again. I was working this file. Say that one.
If you're divided by a negative, if your bottom number that you're dividing by is a negative,
Okay.
you're going to flip your inequality symbol.
Y'all have different questions.
Did they do?
Okay, bottom number. Okay.
If you divide by a negative, you turn the inequality symbol. The inequality symbol is your less than greater than symbol around. Billy. Right? So I'm doing exactly this. I'm dividing by a negative. So I'm going to have the x here. Since I divided by a negative, this arrow turns the other way. That's what I'm talking about. You flip that. Then 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. Now everything's all right. So now it's just the same kind of thing. So put it on your number line, the -4, bracket or parenthesis. Parenthesis. My arrow is pointing the same way as this arrow, so it's going to point to the right. So I'm going to have a parenthesis.
So it's gonna be -4, positive again.
Right.
Parentheses.
So the arrow going to the right. Parenthesis around the -4 to open. Positive infinity is that way, so I'm going to infinity, and infinities always have parentheses. Now 11. I'm ready. You got a calculator? You got TI-84?
Plus.
Plus. Punch it in. That's what we're going to do.
So you can punch them,
Fractions? Absolutely.
no, I'm talking about them arrows.
Oh, no. No. Not going to know it. So this is like number 11. -2/3 x is less than -2. It's hooked on, isn't it? What I need to get rid of, isn't it hooked on to the x?
So you're gonna divide that.
Divide by it.
By the -2?
Just divide by -2/3. Divide by -2/3. There's one little hiccup that you're going to run into that you need to, when you're dividing by a fraction, just make sure you put parentheses around that fraction. Because if not, you would tell, you'd be telling that calculator, if you didn't put parentheses around it, you would say you were dividing by -2 by -2 and then dividing that answer by 3. I don't want to tell it that. I want to tell it that I'm dividing. You can even put the parentheses around this. Just put around the whole thing. That makes more sense.
That's what I did.
You want to put parentheses around the fraction in the bottom. So let's see. X. Oh, am I dividing by a negative?
Yes, so they think.
So this is going to turn around. Instead of this way, going to point that way. So in my calculator, hit the negative button, right? Because I need -2. So the negative button's the one under the 3. So -2. Oh, I got to turn on.
Oh, I got 3.
Good.
There you go.
So -2 divided by, now here's where I would put the parentheses. I want to tell the denominator what I'm dividing by is that whole fraction, not 2 separate numbers. So open parentheses now, then -2/3. So negative again, -2, and you hit the divided by to turn it in to make the fraction symbol, over 3, and then close. So that's what it should look like. -2 divided by -2/3, and hit enter, which gives you +3. Right? I knew it was going to be a positive because I knew if I'm dividing a negative by a negative, that's what turns it positive. So x is greater than 3. Punch that in your calculator. There ain't no sense in trying to divide by all that. Let me do that again.
-2 divided by the parentheses.
Yep.
I did -2 parentheses.
Right, yeah. You want to do divided by, because what you're trying to include as one number instead of 2 separate numbers is that right there. You want to tell your calculator that that's one number, not a separate 2 and a separate 3.
Can you do that with -10? That's what.
Yep.
I don't have one.
Yep.
I need to remember to get myself.
Them arrows don't get me.
All right, so we need a 3 on our number line. Parenthesis or bracket?
Parentheses.
Parenthesis, which way is your arrow going? It started off going to the left, but it's actually, when you turn it around, when you divide it by a negative, it made it go to the right. So parenthesis, arrow to the right. So where is it going to? Going to infinity. So there is your interval notation right there. Open parenthesis, 3, comma, infinity, close your parenthesis. All right, 4 more.
What number was that?
That was number 11. Now we're going to 12. Building, building, building. That's why you want to keep up with math on a daily or at least an every other daily process, because what we learned last week, you have to know to be able to do this week, right? You can't skip a week and then try and figure out what's going on. Because look at number 12. 7x plus 5 plus x is less than 1 plus 4x minus 12. So all I've learned about today that's new is the number lines and the interval notation stuff. Solving this for x was last week. I have to know how to do that already. So this is like my equal sign. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down and then work, because I need to clean up both sides of this, right? Look at the left side of that. Who can go together?
7, 7, 8, 8.
Right. There is no reason to write, if they're on the same side of the symbol,
So it's gonna be 8.
there's no reason to write those as separately. When it's the same thing as 7x and 1x is the same thing as saying 8x.
Right. Plus 5.
Bring down your plus 5.
We're gonna bring down this.
Bring down that symbol. Now, look at your other side.
So wait, I got a question.
Huh.
So Miss Hanson, so can I do 1 plus 4x?
Are they the same kind of term? Are they both x's? No. The reason I put those together is so they were both x's. But what can this one go with that is the same kind of term as that?
It's 12.
That negative 12. They are the same kind.
Oh, okay.
So this 4x doesn't have anybody that can go with it over here, right? It doesn't have any x's to
Oh,
go
so
with.
you saying if it was a 1x and a 4x, you could?
Sure, sure.
Super.
If they both had x's on them, absolutely, put them together.
Yeah.
But they don't, so I'm just dropping the 4x down. But what I can put together is that 1 and that negative 12. They're on the same side, so just put them together. What is 1 plus negative 12 or 1 minus 12? Negative 11. So now I've cleaned it up. Do I have x's on both sides? Cancel out the 1 on the right. Yeah. So that your x's end up on the good side. So I'm going to do minus 4x. Yep.
I'll bring you 4x plus 5.
Right. So this right here, what's left? I have 8x minus 4x, which just leaves me with 4 x's. Drop the plus 5. Drop your symbol. Negative 11 over there. So your x's are here. The x's, remember, they are snobs, right? They want to be alone. Nobody wants to be with the x. So get rid of the plus 5 with a minus 5. So now I have 4x. Drop down your symbol.
It's gonna be negative 16.
Negative 16.
So it's gonna be
What are you dividing by?
40.
Dividing by 4. Good. Divide by 4. Divide by 4. X. Now, I never did divide by a negative,
Negative 4.
right? My answer is going to end up negative. That's fine. I never did divide by a negative, though, right? Which means my symbol doesn't ever turn around.
It's gonna stay the same.
It's going to stay the same, so just drop it down. I'm dividing by positive 4. Now, negative 6 divided by positive 4 is negative 4. I never did divide by a negative number, though, so my symbol never flipped.
So now we gotta plot this. Right.
So now we'll put it on our number line. Put the -4 on your number line.
So it's gonna be negative infinity.
Bracket or parenthesis.
Parentheses.
Parenthesis. Your arrow goes the same way as this, so it's going to go to the left.
Yeah, negative infinity.
Good. So where is that arrow pointing to?
The left, negative infinity.
That negative infinity.
So negative
So there's your interval notation. Open parenthesis. Negative infinity, comma, -4, close parenthesis. All right, I'm going to go ahead and work 13 and 14 and 15. I'm going to leave Zoom open for anybody that has any questions, just because we only have 8 minutes left to get through everything. I'm not going to close Zoom. I'm going to leave it open, and then y'all can work on homework, and I can walk around. So if you do have questions, I can answer them. Because 13 and 14 are processing. 15. All right, we're on 13. A lot of steps. 7. Open parenthesis, x plus 3.
Ooh, you took me fast.
Minus 8x.
Oh, so you gonna remove the parentheses.
You're going to have to.
Right.
Less than or equal to 3. Open parentheses, 3x plus 1. I'm going to move it over so I don't run into that thing. I forget I got more space over here. 7, open parentheses, x plus 3 minus 8x less than or equal to 3. Open parentheses, 3x plus 1 minus 7x. All right. What's the first step in solving this for x? Do you have parentheses?
Yes.
Get rid of them. How do you get rid of them?
So we're gonna do 7 times 1 and 7 times 3.
Right. So I'll distribute that one,
then
and where
we'll do
else?
3 times 3
Good.
and then 3 times 1.
Good. I'll distribute there. So let's do that first step to get rid of those parentheses. So let's see. 7 times x gives you 7x.
And then 7 times 3.
Right. Plus
And then
7 times 3 gives you 21.
and then
What are you going to do with that minus 8x? Do I distribute the 7 to that?
No,
No, because it's not in the parentheses, right? You're just going to drop it down.
And drop the symbol down.
Drop the symbol down exactly as it is. Now, what are you going to multiply that, everything in that parentheses by?
3 times 3.
3 everything, right?
Yep.
So 9x
Plus
plus 3 times 1 is 3.
and then drop the negative
Just
symbol.
drop it down. Now, I still have a lot of cleaning up. Drop down your symbol. Drop down that less than or equal to symbol before you do this next level, because now once I do that, I'm looking at my left side and I can clean that up. Who can go together on that left side?
7, 8, and 8.
What kind of 8x? What kind of 8 is that?
Negative 8.
Right. So I've got a 7x
So you're gonna subtract.
and a minus 8x. What's that? Negative x or negative 1x, however you want to say it. What just drops down? Doesn't have anybody to combine with. That plus 21. So now that cleaned up the left side. Cleaning up just means I want to put all my like terms together. Look at the right side. Who can go together?
9, 8, and 7.
Right, 9 and what kind of 7?
Negative 7.
You can't just not see,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So 9 and minus 7, how much x do you really have? 2x.
And
Drop down to plus 3. Now, dealing with inequalities, because what's my next step? My next step is I have x's on both sides, right? Which means I want to cancel one of them out. When I'm dealing with the inequality symbols, I always like to, it doesn't matter who's bigger or smaller, I like to cancel out the one that's on the right side of it, so that when I get done with solving it, my x is on this side of that less than symbol. If not, it messes up the way you're drawing your arrows. You always like to have your x on the front side of your symbol, so that when you're reading it, you don't have to read it backwards, right? You want your answer to end up like that, right? You want your answer to end up with your x in front of your symbol instead of behind it. No, I'm just saying. You don't make your x to end up like behind it.
Right.
So the way that you make that happen, you can always make that happen for yourself. The way you do it is whatever's the one is behind the symbol, cancel that one. So what am I going to count? I'm canceling the 2x with a minus 2x. I got a minus 2x on this side. So let's see, -1 and -2, or -1 minus 2 gives me -3x. Bring down my plus 21. Drop down your symbol, less than or equal to.
Okay, plus.
The only thing that's left over there is the 3, right? So here's my x that wants to be alone. Who goes away first?
I mean, the 3, right?
No, what's hooked on is last, right?
Ah, so the -3?
No, what goes away first? This or this?
The 21.
The 21 goes away first, right? You don't ever get rid of what's hooked on to the x until your very last step. Always. It's always your last step. So get rid of the plus 21 with a minus 21. So I have negative 3x. Have I divided by a negative yet? Still haven't done that. So my sign is still the same. 3 minus 21 gives me negative 18. But now what am I doing?
It's gonna be a positive 6.
Right, because what are you dividing by? What's hooked on? -3. Now, what did I just do? What did I divide by?
-3.
Negative.
So your symbol gonna turn.
Your symbol's going to turn around because now you did divide by a negative. So I'm x. Turn your symbol around from the arrow pointing to the left to the arrow pointing to the right. Negative over a negative turns that into positive 6. So after all that, you are left with x is greater than or equal to 6. So before we do interval notation, let's put that on the number line, right? Once you see the picture on the number line, then you just jerk the interval notation right off the number line. So what number do I need on my number line? What number do I need to represent?
Positive 6.
Positive 6. So positive 6. Am I going to have an a bracket or a parenthesis on it?
Oh, a bracket.
A bracket, because I had the equal to bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have a bracket on it. Which way is my equal to bar pointing? It's pointing to the right. Or my symbol is pointing to the right. So I'm going to have a bracket on the 6 with my arrow pointing the same way as my symbol. Where's that arrow going to? What's on this side of the number line?
To the right.
Right?
So positive infinity.
It's pointing all the way to the right to positive infinity.
So it's gonna be a bracket.
There's your, exactly. Once you see the picture on the number line, that's your interval notation. An open bracket on the 6 to infinity, and then infinity always has a parenthesis. All right, 2 more, and I know we're over time, but we just have lab after this anyway, so we're in here anyway, so we're just going to finish this. Number 14.
Number 14.
Yep. 5. Open parentheses, 2k plus 3. Close. Minus 2, open parentheses again, k minus 8. Is greater than 3, open parentheses, 2k plus 5.
Oh, geez.
I know. Plus k minus 2. Yo.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me rewrite this one more time.
And that's a good point that you say something like that. On a problem like this, it is very important to stay organized in your work with each step. All right. The only good thing about this problem is I don't see any fractions. Pretty much everything else looks like it stinks.
You will not me again.
Do I have parentheses?
Yes.
So I'm going to get rid of all of them on my first step. I'll distribute the 5 there. I'll distribute the -2 here. On this side, I will distribute the 3 there. So I'm going to remove all 3 sets of parentheses in one swoosh. Right, you just multiply whatever's hooked on. So what am I going to have here? 10k
Plus 15.
plus, right, 5 times 3 is 15.
Okay.
Now, be careful with your
-2.
signs. Minus 2k. What is this going to turn into? I have -2 times -8. Right, good. Positive 16. Billy's favorite.
Okay, so 3, 2k is gonna be 5.
Multiply. Good. 6k plus 3 times 5
15.
plus 15. What's going to happen with this?
Drop that down.
Just drop it down. Plus k minus 2. So I still got a mess. This next step is going to clean this up tremendously. Because what is the next step? I would just bring down my symbol and clean up the front and the back side by combining your like terms. On the front side, who can go with the 10k? What kind of 2k? The -2k. Put those together. So how much k do you have on the front side? 10 and -2 gives you 8k.
8k, drop that.
What can you put? Is there something you can put the 15 with?
Oh, yeah.
I can
15 and 16, right?
Right.
15 plus 16?
Right. They're both positives and they're on the same
31.
side.
So minus.
Not minus. Why minus?
No, plus
Plus
31.
31. Now, look how cleaned up that side looks. 8k plus 31.
Okay.
Do the back side. Who can I put with the 6k?
6k and positive k.
Right. And this one's 1, right?
Yep.
So how much k do you have on that side?
7k.
Right. You got 7k.
And then 15 minus 2
Which is?
is gonna be 13.
Right. Positive 13. Now we're talking, right? Look how cleaned up we are now. We just have 8k plus 31 is greater than 7k plus 13. So after you clean up both sides, the front and the back, Then you say, do you have K's on both sides?
Yes.
Get rid of the right K. So what am I gonna do?
Subtract
Subtract the 7K.
on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be 1K.
Good. I like 1K, right? 8 minus 7 leaves you with just
I don't know if I like 1K.
K.
Well, more than me.
Well, for this purpose. Bring down my plus 31.
But you can add it, can't you?
Nope, because one's K and one's not. You can only put K's with other K's.
I'm talking about,
What's up? So I just dropped this down.
no, I'm saying you can't add the 31 and the 13 together.
Well, they're on both, they're on separate sides. Here's my symbol.
Okay.
What's left on the right, on the back side of that symbol?
13.
Just the 13. Now, for K to be alone, what do you do with this?
Subtract.
Subtract the 31.
The 31 minus 13.
No, other way around.
Negative.
No. What does this say? K is greater than, not 31 minus 13. 13 minus 31, right? Which is probably what you typed. So what does that give you? What is 13 minus 31?
Negative 18.
Negative 18. So X is greater than negative 18. Let's see. So you want to put the negative 18 on your number line.
You said, did you want the door closed? She closed it.
Oh, they want it closed because I'm too hot. So, negative 18 on my number line. Let's see, which way did my arrow, first of all, parenthesis or bracket?
Parentheses.
Parenthesis. Which way is your arrow pointing?
To the right.
It's pointing to the right. So, parenthesis, arrow to the right.
Is this, okay. This is going to.
Where is your arrow pointing to? What's going on forever here?
Positive infinity.
It's pointing to positive infinity. So there is your interval notation. Open parenthesis, negative 18, comma, infinity, parenthesis. Last one. So, this last one is a word problem, and it's talking about the average of your grades. So, let's see, let's remind ourselves, how do we find our average of our test scores? So, say you have taken 3 tests. On your first test, you made a 72. On your second test, you made an 81. And on your third test, you made a 94. So say those are your only grades that you've had all semester, and you wanted to find the what your average would be, your overall score. What would you do? If I wanted to find the average of those, you would add them all together, and then you would divide that number by 3. So let's just practice and do that. So add those 3 numbers together. Let's see, what do I get? I got
244.
You got what?
I got 244.
wait, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I was wrong.
247.
That's why Billy's gonna use a calculator when he takes his test. 247 is what those would all, since I took 3 tests, right? You divide it by the number of tests that you took. So 3 into 247, or 247 divided by 3. So 247 divided by 3 gave me an 82.5. 3. That would have been my average if I had those 3 tests taken. So let's read this question. John has grades of 86 and 98. So he's got an 86 and a 98 on his first 2 tests. What must he score on his 3rd test so that his average is at least 89? So I have an unknown test here. So I need to solve, this is what I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to find out what I need to make on my 3rd test for my average to be at least 89. So let's think about what that means. I need it to be 89 or bigger, right? That's what at least 89. At the very least, I want my average to be an 89. Because maybe the teacher is saying, if you have an overall average of 89, I'm going to round it up to an 8. So he's saying, okay, I need that. My 3rd test needs to be high enough to be at least an 89 average. So the way I'm going to write that is I need 86 plus 98 plus what I'm going to get on my 3rd test. I don't need it to equal 89, so there's going to be a symbol here with an 89 on the other side. If I want it to be at least 89, it's going to be an inequality symbol. It doesn't say I want my average to be 89, because if it did, then I would just put an equal symbol. If it said I want my average to be exactly 89, but it doesn't say that. It says it wants it to be at least 89, which means this side needs to be greater than or equal to that side, right? I need all my tests to average bigger or equal to 89. Solve it for x. So I want the x to be alone. Oh, wait. What did I just do?
Right.
Oh.
Because I got multiple choice. I think we got to put a symbol on here, don't we?
Oh, wait. What's this?
Because this is select correct choice and simplify your answer.
Wait. I'm missing a step, aren't I? Oh, you know what I'm missing? That part. These numbers added together, divided by 3, must be bigger than 89. So that's the part I'm missing, isn't it?
Wait, so you saying add the 85, the 96, and the 80, add the 86, the 98, and the 89, right?
Yep, that's what I need to do. The average of these 3 has to be great. So this right here, I need to think of it divided by 3. That'll get me there. If I add those 3 numbers together and divide them by 3, that needs to be bigger than 89.
So that x gonna be 1.
So yes.
Now, on this one, since you know what you have to have, can't you just multiply 89 times 3?
Which is, okay, so what's my first step here? You're exactly right. What does this line mean? Divided by.
Right.
So if I'm trying to get x by itself, and I'm trying to get, how do you undo divided by 3? What's the opposite of dividing by 3? What's the opposite of division? So I'll get rid of that. If I multiply this side by 3, I got to do what?
Multiply 3.
So this 3 cancels that one. So now I'm left with what up here? 86 plus 98 plus x is greater than or equal to 89 times 3, which is 267. Getting x by itself. Here's the side of my symbol. Here's my symbol. Do I have some cleaning up I can do over here? Yeah, I can put that 86 and that 98 together. What do you get when you put those together? What is 86 plus 98? 86 plus 98. 184. Bring down my plus x. Bring down my 267. What do I need to do for x to be by itself? Subtract 184. Subtract 184.
83.
So x, good, needs to be greater than or equal to what? When you subtract that, you get 83. So you need to make at least an 83 on the test. So let's see. He must score 83 or higher on his third test. Right? You see what I'm saying? The other options are he must score less than 83. No, he doesn't want to score less than 83. He wants to score 83 or higher. His score must be 83 or less on the third test. No, he must score more than 83 on his third test. No, not more than. He must score 83 or more than, right? So that's the difference in those. So that means, 83, he must score an 83 or more
On his third test.
on his third test. Yep. Okay, so on Thursday, we're going to do the review for chapter 2. Okay, so if y'all want to tune in live to ask questions while I'm going through the review, tune in live. If not, it'll be in a YouTube in your week 4 folder. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.